never going to say who's the greatest of all time. To me, I think I just don't agree when you start, trying to put one above the other. It doesn't work. We'll never know. Even Kobe in my prime, I would love to have played, against those guys. But we'll never be able to know that.
For decades, the name of Michael Jordan has been almost permanently linked with one powerful title, the GOAT. From highlight reels and flashy graphics to heated TV debates and endless comment sections, the same question keeps resurfacing. Is he truly the greatest ever, or has someone else taken that crown? Every new generation adds fresh contenders like LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, fueling arguments that never seem to cool down fire. Yet no matter how far the conversation drifts, it almost always finds its way back to Jordan. What makes this even more fascinating is that Jordan himself doesn't approach the debate the way his most passionate supporters do. When asked directly about being the GOAT, he avoids embracing the label, refuses to deliver a dramatic headline-ready quote, and instead focuses on a deeper perspective. He often points to the differences between eras, the changing nature of competition, and the reality that greatness can't be reduced to simple comparisons of stats or championship totals bar chart. In this discussion, we explore the GOAT debate through Jordan's own words, not fan opinions or media hype, but his reflections on legends who came before him and superstars who followed. As his reasoning unfolds, the familiar question of who is the single greatest ever begins to feel less meaningful. Instead, a new question emerges. If Jordan doesn't believe in one universal GOAT, what does he truly believe defines greatness? Over the years, he has skillfully sidestepped the pressure to declare himself number one. Interviewers might start conversations about team ownership, the Charlotte Hornets, golf flag and hole, or the Olympics, but eventually the topic shifts back to legacy. Then comes the predictable setup. Are you better than LeBron? Better than Kobe? It's obvious they're searching for that one explosive quote that can be clipped, shared, and argued over for days.
One thing that's never changed with sports fans is the debate about the GOAT. Who's the greatest of all time? So it's rare that I get a chance to sit down with one of the guys who's debated about to talk about the conversation of that term, the GOAT.
Rather than falling into the trap, Michael Jordan often pulls the conversation in a completely different direction directed. He doesn't start rattling off his championships, MVP trophies, or scoring titles to prove a point. Instead, he zooms out and questions the comparison itself. Jordan frequently highlights the importance of context, the differences between eras, evolving rules, and the simple reality that he never actually competed on the same court with some of the legends he's measured against. He brings up iconic figures like Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West, noting that their peak years never truly overlapped with his. To him, that means many so-called debates are built more on imagination than on real head-to-head battles thinking face. When discussions shift to championship totals, especially the famous 11 rings won by Bill Russell compared to Jordan's 6, he doesn't try to diminish Russell's legacy or aggressively defend his own resume. Instead, he calmly points out how the league was structured differently back then, from a number of teams to the style of play and level of competition. His message is clear. Numbers alone can't fully define greatness because they don't capture the full story behind each era.
And I think those are when, that's how people are judging certain things. I won 6 championships. Bill Russell won 11. Does that make Bill Russell better than me and make me better than him?
Once you recognize this pattern in his answers, it stops sounding like a polite dodge and starts looking like a consistent philosophy. Jordan is pushing the conversation away from simple ranking and toward a deeper question. What does greatest even mean when the game, the music rules, and the context keep changing? If there's one word Jordan keeps coming back to when he talks about the GOAT conversation, it's unfair. Not unfair as in people don't give me enough credit, but unfair in the way the question itself is structured. His point is simple. Once you start crossing eras, you're not comparing like for like anymore. Rules change, pace changes, physicality changes. Even the role of star player changes. Lining everyone up on one imaginary court and declaring a single winner ignores all of that.
Better than him? No, because we play at different eras. So when you try to equate who's the greatest of all time, it's an unfair parallel. It's an unfair choice. And I think
To make his thinking even easier to understand, Michael Jordan often turns to examples beyond basketball man golfing. In golf, fans still debate the greatness of Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods. Both legends dominated their eras and shattered records. Yet they competed under completely different circumstances against different generations of opponents. You can compare their major titles and tournament wins, but you can't fully recreate the unique competitive environment each one faced. Jordan believes the same challenge exists when people try to rank NBA icons. When his name is placed alongside historic figures like Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, or Bill Russell, he usually highlights the gaps between their careers. He never battled Wilt or West during their peak years, and Russell's famous run of 11 championships came in a league that was smaller and structured very differently. That doesn't diminish anyone's achievements, white medium star. It simply shows how complex it becomes to stack legends into one definitive ranking. From Jordan's perspective, this is why the GOAT debate often feels like a loop. It's exciting, emotional, and endlessly entertaining, but it's not a question that can be settled with one neat, objective answer.
because, first of all, you're never going to say who's the greatest of all time. To me, I think that's more for PR and more for selling stories and getting hype.
Where Michael Jordan becomes especially thoughtful is when he shifts the discussion from comparison to evolution counterclockwise arrows button. He doesn't see basketball history as a simple leaderboard where every new superstar must be ranked above or below the last. Instead, he describes the game as a continuous chain. Each generation studies the one before it, adds new ideas, and then passes those improvements forward to the next wave of talent. When Jordan mentions earlier legends like Oscar Robertson or Jerry West, it's usually to highlight their influence rather than measure himself against them. These are the players he watched closely, learned from, and drew inspiration from as he shaped his own style and fierce competitive mindset basketball. He often emphasizes that his greatness didn't suddenly appear out of nowhere. It was built on the foundation laid by those who came before him. In the same way, the stars who followed his era carried parts of his legacy forward. A prime example is Kobe Bryant, whose footwork, mentality, and relentless drive clearly reflected Jordan's impact, while also pushing the game into a new chapter.
GOAT term is never going to be something that I ever will get high or low about, you know. It just doesn't exist with me. I never played against Oscar Robertson or Jerry West. Would have loved to. Absolutely love to. Just as competitive as I am. You know, and I actually learned from them, you know, and we, you know, paved the road to the Kobe's and the LeBrons, right? You know, and to me, it's the beauty of the game of basketball that a player after a previous player has evolved the game further.
That's why he's uncomfortable when modern GOAT debates treat older legends like they're outdated. When Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or even some of the early perimeter stars are treated as if they're no longer relevant to the conversation, it cuts against the way Jordan sees the game. In his view, their impact is built into everything that came after, including his own career. Seen through that lens, greatness isn't about one person erasing everyone else. It's about each era adding a new layer. The conversation becomes less who's on top of the pyramid forever and more what did each of these players contribute to the game's evolution.
Is that against the player that actually taught you the game or that you learned from?
Yeah,
and that's why I have a tough time. And, you know, look, I would love to have played against LeBron and, you know, Kobe in my prime. You know, I would love to have played, you know, against those guys. But we'll never be able to know that. Part of the marketing, part of the hype, part of the things that tries to elevate one generation above the other,
Right.
I think it creates animosity. I have no animosity against today's players, but you do have certain players that do have animosity because of the forgottenness of what their contribution has been to the game of basketball.
When the conversation shifts from eras in general to specific names like LeBron and Kobe, Jordan's approach stays surprisingly steady. He doesn't suddenly break his own rules just because the comparison involves players everyone talks about. With LeBron, he usually focuses on the body of work, The longevity, the consistency, the expectations that have been on him since he was a teenager, and the way he's carried teams for such a long time. It's clear he respects the career without turning that respect into a formal ranking.